You're listening to episode number 5 of the Queen of Your Castle podcast. Thank you for joining me today. Today's episode, as every episode, is one of my favorite topics to think about. I'm pretty sure, or talk about. I have probably millions of favorite topics. My husband makes fun of me all of the time because I say this is my favorite song about 100 different songs, but I'm a very passionate person, so I come by it honestly. Today's episode is all about a mistake that I see a lot of stepmoms making, and it would be a disservice for me not to share this message. You know, on social media, there are a lot of people who moonlight as experts in the field, and they don't have any qualifications, they don't have any training, and the messages that they spread and the advice that they give maybe necessarily is not the best or most productive advice or opportunity to grow yourself in your stepmom journey, inside your house, outside your house, etc. So I felt called to bring this message to you and have you evaluate what kinds of things and messages that you are surrounding yourself with, because those will directly impact how happy that you feel. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Where would you take your life if you knew you could not fail? I get it. As a stepmom, mom, and entrepreneur, sometimes it can feel like what everyone else expects of you versus what you dream about for yourself are on opposite ends of the spectrum. As a woman, you're taught from a very young age what society thinks you're worth based on how you look, how you behave, and how much money you're allowed to bring in. But I'm here to show you that you can be the woman who has it all, and not just on the outside. I'm Brittany Lynch, and you are the queen of your castle. Welcome to episode number 5 of the Queen of Your Castle podcast. I am your host, Brittany Lynch, and I hope from the bottom of my heart that you are doing just swimmingly in life, in love, in health, in wealth. I hope that you are starting to feel or are feeling or know that you can feel like the woman who has it all and not just on the outside. And if you're not quite there yet, then I hope this episode shines a little bit of light on how to move closer to that place. A lot of stepmoms say to me that they want to change the wicked stepmom stereotype. And I feel that for sure. Like I really do. That's why I'm here. But I can't help but notice something. It's almost like it's encouraged in, other stepmom support groups to be just this like venting, dumping ground. And it honestly makes me pretty sad that people are being misled to believe that venting is a good solution. Like, I'm not sure if you've ever poked around inside of any of these stepmom support groups, but they can get pretty heated and pretty nasty pretty quickly. And I also realize that a lot of this venting comes from this really frustrated place, right? Like nobody on earth hears you or validates your journey as a stepmom. So I do understand the attraction to needing a safe space so that you can feel heard and that your feelings feel like they're okay. And you feel like it's okay to be frustrated because it is, right? Like you are allowed to feel confused in your role as a stepmom. There are all these unwritten rules of stepfamilies. What works for one doesn't necessarily work for the other. And I hear this all the time from other stepmoms that they feel so alone. But what today's episode is all about is this. If you are like most stepmoms, then I'm sure that you've heard a million times that talking about your problems or venting about your problems is the way to make them go away. But what if I told you that venting about your problems is actually probably one of the worst things that you can do? I'm not being dramatic when I say this. Like venting is not the answer. So to clear up with the definition of venting is when you start a sentence and say, I just need to vent. This thing happened to me. I just need to vent, right? I see it all the time in these support communities. I don't even go in there anymore because it's just so painful. There's so much sadness in there. So if you ever like, I just need to vent, and people are telling you, just come here and vent, I'm really going to try and encourage you to adapt a different mindset about what venting does and how damaging that it can be. So one reason in particular, like if you asked the average person, what are the traits of your stereotypical wicked stepmom? What are the traits of your stereotypical wicked stepmom? What would most people, or maybe even you, say or think about the stereotypical wicked stepmom? Well, the stereotypical wicked stepmom, you know, the one the world loves to paint as the bad guy, the evil one, the wicked witch of the West. Most people would say things like, maybe she's jealous. Maybe she's jealous of her stepkids, maybe of her partner's ex. Maybe she's angry, right? Maybe she's completely withdrawn. Maybe she's just straight up mean. But if you're anything like most stepmoms, then you know that you aren't actually this bad guy, right? You know that you just have all of these big feelings and you don't know what to do with them. Maybe you feel guilty. Maybe you even feel guilty for feeling them. Maybe you think like, is there something wrong with me for feeling this way? Like, why do I feel this way about a child? Why do I feel this way about somebody else, about this, my partner's ex? Why am I feeling this way? So what happens is that all of these big feelings build up. Stepmom starts feeling like she's going to have a nervous breakdown because she's trying to keep it all together. And then at 2:00 in the morning, she's looking for some kind of support, some kind of validation, somebody to say, you're not crazy. What you're going through is very normal for stepmoms. But the first place that most stepmoms look for this is on social media. You know, Facebook groups, Facebook support groups, Instagram hashtags. You just want to know that you're not alone or that anyone, anywhere understands what you're going through. But now, because venting and talking about problems is the norm in these support communities, air quote, support communities, it sets the stage for how everyone in those groups is talking and venting and sharing. So now we have a bit of a conundrum, right? We have this big group of what society would call the wicked stepmom, but disclaimer, who I understand as being a woman who feels just defeated and sad and left out and alone in her stepfamily and hasn't figured out how to navigate it yet. But we have this big group, these big groups, lots of groups of strangers from all types of different religious backgrounds and value systems and stepfamily circumstances. And they're congregated in these support communities where it's encouraged to vent about all of your problems. And because it feels like somebody finally gets it, it's like putting a Mento. It's like putting a Mento inside of a bottle of Diet Coke, right? And it's shaking it up and all these built up feelings start blowing up, just blowing up out of control. But you vent and then other people vent about your venting and it just turns into this big vent soup and you're encouraged to keep venting because of this misinformation that venting will make you feel better. And now we're really in trouble because it becomes normal to come to these like venting spots. And all of the negativity in there becomes normal. And so when you get trapped in this downward spiral, soon you're going to realize that this venting business in these groups is absolutely not helping your relationship with your partner, your relationship with their kids, your relationship with their ex, your relationship with yourself. So what started out as a sad and defeated stepmom looking for some community at 2:00 in the morning, looking for some other people who get it, has now turned out to be this perpetuation of the wicked stepmom stereotype. And so let me ask you this question. Where do you think your life is going to be in 12 months if you continue to buy into all of this negativity? There's a reason divorce rates in stepfamilies is 2 out of every 3. And most people don't know what I'm about to tell you. So consider yourself ahead of most of the world. If you're still listening to this, it means that you resonate with what I'm saying. And if you're like most stepmoms, then all you're looking for is peace and happiness and respect and to feel accepted and to feel loved and to feel cherished and to feel valued. And that's great. That's what every single person on this earth deserves to feel. But maybe you've gone into these support communities looking for that, right? For peace, for connection. You don't know that you're walking into a landmine. Everyone else is doing it, right? Everyone else is there doing it. But what the happy and peaceful and joyful and connected, valued stepmom knows that maybe even you have forgotten is this. The stepmom who has it all, and not just on the outside, has learned that her happiness or freedom or peace cannot be found by venting. The way to happiness and abundance and freedom is not found in venting. The way to this place actually is in choosing to tell yourself a different story. It's about surrounding yourself with supportive people, other stepmoms who are also choosing to tell themselves a different story. So I want you to consider this example. I didn't write this story, by the way. It's just a story I heard one time. It's about a wise man in a village. And people have been coming to the wise man in the village, complaining about the same problems, day in, day out, day in, day out, day in, day out. They're always coming to this wise man, this problem, same problem, complain. One day, the wise man told the villagers a joke, and everyone laughed. They roared in laughter. It was hilarious to them. After a couple of minutes, the wise man told the villagers the same joke. And only a few of them, kind of half smiled, trying to be polite. And then a couple minutes later, he told the same joke for the third time, but nobody laughed anymore. And the wise man smiled and said, "You can't laugh at the same joke over and over. So why do you keep talking about the same problem?" Talking about your same problem over and over and over again is not the solution to solving your problems. Surrounding yourself with people who talk about the same problems over and over and over again is not the solution to your problems. But when you learn to tell yourself a different story, you can instantly transform your life. This is your life. This is your story. Nobody else's. So what do I mean by telling yourself a different story, and how can you do this right now? I'm in a story kind of mood today, so let me illustrate with another story. So one evening, an old Cherokee told his grandson about a battle that goes on inside of people. He said, "My son, the battle inside of people is between two wolves. Everyone has two wolves inside of us. One wolf is evil. The evil wolf is anger, envy, jealousy, sorrow, regret, greed, arrogance, self-pity, guilt, resentment, lies, false pride, superiority, and ego. The other wolf is the good wolf. It is joy, peace, love, hope, serenity, humility, kindness, empathy, generosity, truth, compassion, and faith." The grandson thought about it for a minute, and he asked his grandfather, "Which wolf wins in this fight?" And the old Cherokee grandfather simply replied, "The one you feed." So when you vent, you're feeding the evil wolf inside of you. When you surround yourself with others who are venting and complaining, you are encouraging them to keep feeding their evil wolf, and they are feeding your evil wolf in return. But when you tell yourself a new story, which I'm about to show you how to do, you're feeding the good wolf, the joyful wolf, the peaceful wolf, the loving wolf. There's a reason I have a whole program about stepmom story. Right now I have women from around the world who are learning to tell themselves a different story, one with a happy ending. At your funeral, what do you want people saying about you? That you spent your whole life wrapped up in sadness, or avoiding your stepkids, or being affected by their mom, or living paycheck to paycheck? Or do you want them saying you are the happiest and most optimistic, high vibe, loving and compassionate and abundant person that they knew, no matter what was going on in your life? It all boils down to the stories that you tell yourself. So I'm going to teach you all about how you can tell yourself new stories next week in episode 6. So if you haven't already subscribed, then please go ahead and do that now so you don't miss it. Also, I want to thank everyone who already has subscribed, and an extra special thank you to everyone who has left ratings and reviews already. It means the whole entire world to me when you rate and review the show. So thank you for helping me get this message out to other stepmoms like you who have felt very similarly to how you have. I won't leave you hanging though with what you can do this week. So here's what I would invite you to practice over the next little bit. So like I'd mentioned a little bit earlier, the reason that most people vent about their problems is because something is going on that makes them feel either sad or angry or hurt, right? Venting is basically a way of expressing that you have a need that's not being met. So for example, if your partner's ex-wife is saying things about you to your stepkids and those things get back to you, you might feel hurt or angry, right? Or in some cases, maybe you even feel betrayed. These bad feelings that you have as a result stem from a need that you have that in the moment with those words or those actions of other people, you have a need that you feel isn't being met. And every human has core needs, right? Tony Robbins talks about this all of the time. And one of those core needs is the need for significance or feeling special or feeling important or feeling worthy. So when someone says something that violates that need, that core need that you have, whether they put you down or they undermine you, it hurts and it makes you angry because you subconsciously realize that it isn't lining up with your needs. And I also just want you to remember that it's a human's job to survive, right? So if a need isn't being met, this is basically, your brain interprets this as basically a threat to your survival. So if you were a cave woman and you came out of your cave and there was a saber-toothed tiger waiting for you, this would be a threat to your survival. The same thing happens in your brain. So you would fight, you would flight, or you would freeze. Now, as a stepmom still carrying on with your partner's ex saying something nasty about you, potentially, you would either fight, flight, or freeze. So if you're like most people, then after that initial response of feeling like your safety was in jeopardy, whether you react or respond or shut down, most stepmoms, after you do that, most stepmoms are going to go on and have a conversation in their heads about what just happened, right? Like you're going to drive to the store and you're going to be stewing on it. Maybe you're going to be having a bath. You're going to be stewing on it, still stewing on it, wake up the next day, go to sleep. It's stuck in your head. You're playing this story over and over and over again about this. Until finally, after you've been stewing on it long enough, it turns into a Mento and Diet Coke explosion and event session. It turns into you perusing the internet at 2:00 in the morning looking for some kind of support, right? But here is what I would invite you to do instead of venting. Remember earlier I said to tell yourself a different story. We explore this more next week. But for now, I would invite you to start practicing this. I find this exercise best to write down, like journal it, type it into the notes in your phone, whatever you choose to do. It's just better if you can actually get the words onto paper or onto your phone or something instead of leaving them in your head, because it feels different when you get them out. So when something comes up that you feel you need to vent about, this is what I would invite you to say to yourself instead. What I want you to do is ask yourself, am I feeling mad? Am I feeling sad? Am I feeling resentful? Am I feeling dismissed, etc.? Like, what is the feeling? Identify the feeling. And then I want you to write down this sentence. My feelings are valid. I'm allowed to process them. When I feel this way, it's because I have a need that isn't being met. Okay? So start off with this sentence. My feelings are valid. I'm allowed to process them. When I feel this way, it's because I have a need that isn't being met. Next is my favorite step. After you do that, I want you to write down something that you can do for yourself to meet that need. So if we go back to the example of maybe your partner's ex saying something to your stepkids about you, if the need that isn't being met is to feel significant or worthy or appreciated, brainstorm a list of a few things that you can do for yourself to prove to yourself the true story that you are significant, you are worthy, you are appreciated. So maybe this looks like, curling up in a nice cozy blanket with a cup of tea and a good book because you're worthy of feeling that yummy, warm, protected feeling. Maybe that looks like making a list of all the people who do appreciate you. Maybe it looks like appreciating your body by doing some, gentle stretching or rolling out your mat or going for a massage. There are endless ways that you can tell the story differently. Endless. There are endless ways that you can meet your own needs. And all venting does is reinforces a belief that you don't have the power to meet your own needs. But if you're listening to this podcast, then you know that your needs are worth being met. So to sum up, we chatted about, why I highly advise against joining any stepmom support communities that encourage venting, and instead seek out other stepmoms who are on a path to empowerment and growth and love and joy and connection. A community of women who know what you're going through, right? Like the community aspect is important. It's important to go to connect with other stepmoms because they do get it on a different level. But I don't want to see you staying in this bad feeling place and spinning your wheels or being surrounded in negativity. You don't need to keep telling yourself stories that make you feel bad or sad or disempowered. You are so worthy of an even better life. So I want you to take an audit. What kinds of things? Who are you following on social media? What kinds of places do you belong to? What kinds of communities do you belong to? Is the vibe in those communities toxic or is it solution focused? What is the average tone of what is happening? Is it encouraging you to be better and to get unstuck, or does it want you to stay there in that negativity forever? Only you know the answer to that, but I promise your life will be so much better if you are not surrounding yourself in negativity. And if you don't hold on to this false belief anymore that venting is the way out. It's not. Venting is not the way out. The way out is through telling yourself a different story, a better story, a happy story. You are so worthy of an even better life. You are the queen of your castle. You get to write your fairy tale. You get to write your happily ever after. Cheers to that. I hope this episode got your wheels turning and showed you just how powerful you are. I would invite you to take 30 seconds and tap subscribe to this podcast. When you subscribe to the podcast, then rest assured you will never miss an episode. And in no time, spinning your wheels will be a thing of the past. Thank you for listening and subscribing. And if you enjoyed this episode, it would mean the absolute world to me if after you subscribed, you jumped on over and left me a 5-star review, and better yet, a written review. I am on a mission to let every mom and stepmom know that you can create the life of your dreams. And I need your help to change the world. The world needs us. Thank you so much for subscribing and leaving me a 5-star review. I will see you next week, same time, same place. For more behind the scenes action and to get really up close and personal with me and our beautiful step family, jump on over to Instagram and follow me at The Step Queen. Don't be shy. Send me a DM. Tag me in your posts. Tag me in your stories. Let me know what you're up to and what about the podcast has been blowing your mind. I cannot wait to get to know you better, and Instagram is my jam. I love you so much. Make it rain, girlfriend.